Sony is heavily dependent on PlayStation, and this is why I think comparing Xbox and PlayStation even are a little weird in like the ecosystems, because Microsoft doesn't really need or rely on Xbox, but Sony wouldn't exist basically at this point without PlayStation. And they have to treat it with incredible care. And you're right that fiscal 24, PlayStation made a little over $30 billion, which is a record, but the profit was only $3 billion. The amazing thing about Sony's financial success this generation is how they're amortizing all of their losses and still doing really well. In other words, they'd probably be doing even better. They certainly would be doing even better, and it's kind of incredible that they've absorbed the Bungie purchase and Concord's failure, which was hundreds of millions of dollars, and all these other things, and you don't really even see it in the books. But I think behind the scenes, they're like, well, we should be doing a lot better. We have higher expectations. We need more money. And I think that opens up paths for games as a service and thinking about different ways of doing things. And my own audience knows that I've been really aggressive, much to most of their chagrin, about PlayStation games going to PC especially. Like, I think they should be being way more aggressive in that space. Mostly because I think the numbers are panning out that there's really no competition between these two spaces, that they are kind of distinct places with little Venn diagram crossover. And I think people like what they like too. Like, you can just see it in the numbers of PlayStation games to PC. Is like the numbers generally, Helldivers kind of broke it and other things, but the first games did the best and the newest games did the worst. It has nothing to do with quality. Days Gone having 3 times or whatever the player base of The Last of Us is not about those games being different, like one game being better than the other. It's about the novelty. And once the novelty wore off, people stopped buying the games in these great numbers because they're not really that interested in them. And I think Sony might have realized, like, maybe there's more distinction between these environments than we thought, and maybe we can explore these environments without really cannibalizing ourselves. But the reason that I think that it's so important that, and I know they know this, is it's vital for them to figure this out while not eroding their own value proposition, is because 53% of PlayStation Store revenue, so 53%, come from 10 games. 10. And so I just think they look at it and they're like, we need to be aggressive in the places where we can make the most money. These games as a service are doing incredibly well for us on our platform. We're vulnerable. And because we don't own any of them, they don't really need us. We need them. And so I think they're figuring out ways to kind of proliferate these IP. And unlike Death Stranding or Neo or Stellar Blade or whatever, they actually own Helldivers. And so I think that they're looking at it with a special level of care, which is why I think they'll be aggressive with games as a service in the future. But I think there will be a distinction between that and the single player stuff.